Hello and welcome back to the sewing room. I'm going to be carrying on with my quilt today. I'm going to call it an inspiration quilt because I needed some to start it again, and this here actually is an old quilt which I'm just using as a backdrop and which I'm pinning the different blocks to. I've put this into a playlist. It's called Quilting Inspiration, and the first video is in there. So maybe take a look at that first. Before I carry on, can I just say thank you very much for subscribing, and can I also say thank you for the comments that I've received. It's very encouraging. On with the quilt. This is one of my old quilts, and because it's got quite a lot of white patches in it, I'm using it to pin my blocks to until I get an idea of how the new one's going to look. These are the two blocks that appeared in the first video. They both sort of in a way went wrong because they're quite difficult. Certainly this one, the Penrose tile one, you need to have it really over a large area, and it was actually quite hard to do. I also tried to do it on the sewing machine, and it really does need to be paper pieced. But I'm keeping it, and I'm going to just surround it with paper pieced white bits so that it will fit into the quilts, because I've not really made an awful lot of decisions about this new quilt yet, but it is definitely going to have, similar to this one and the one I showed you yesterday, it's going to have cream and white as the background. It's not going to be all colour. One of the books I showed in the first video, I have been reading it a bit more, and I'll explain now how I came to do this piece and how it's kind of now helping to get the quilt going. So I hope you'll enjoy watching it, and I hope that I will inspire you as well. I've been spending a bit of time looking at these books again, and of all the pictures in all the books that I've seen so far, the picture I can't take my eyes off is this one. I just think this is absolutely amazing, the way this lady has made this quilt in the 1880s. It's called the Jubilee Coverlet from 1887, an elaborate silk and velvet pieced and embroidered quilt made to commemorate Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee by Mrs. Mills of Crook, and it was given as payment to her landlord in lieu of rent. Isn't that amazing? These beautiful embroidered figures on it. I can't do embroidery at all, and I love the way it's got this overall hue of that sort of purpley brown colour. I think from reading the text that comes from a plant dye called madder, but I'm not certain. I really love these little fans, and whereas I don't think I can ever hope to get anywhere near the achievements of Mrs. Mills, I did wonder if I could do a fan, and I was wondering how on earth she had embroidered. I couldn't really make out the scale. But then I worked out that it's about just over 2 meters square, which means that each of these fans is about 25 centimeters. And I've realized that is pretty much exactly the same as this quilting ruler I've got. It's 9.5 inches square, and that's about just over 25 centimeters. And it's also got these 30-degree angle. You probably can't see what you're able to see now, but it's also got these 30-degree angles on it. It's got three on it. I just think this is such a strange coincidence. There's actually 5 parts to the fan, so if you were to draw another 30-degree line there and another 30-degree line there, so that would be 75, wouldn't it? And that one would be 15 there. It would have 5 sections, so I just felt like it was meant to be almost. So I can't embroider, and I did think about, did I have any fabric remotely like that? Now I'm using up my scraps. I fished these out. I got these out, and they don't have little people on them, but they do have animals. And there's I looked for this turquoisey colour to see what had that in it, and I've got some little horses, birds. That's a strip that's left over from doing a quilt. So I'm going to see if I can make a quilting block that is a fan, and it will go in the corners of the quilt. That's the plan anyway. I've drawn in the other lines. This is effectively now going to be my template, isn't it? So I just need to trace along those lines. Once I'd made my pattern, I did actually have to then join together some of my scraps because they were so small that I had to actually set about joining them together. Said this was a scrappy quilt, and it really is, because even when I'd finished the panel, I've got a bit I'm going to have to patch in, but then draw. It is patchwork. Once you've combined all of your fan pieces together, you need to put a border on it. And that'll depend on what is the general background of your quilt. If you look closely at the picture in the book that's at the beginning of the video, um, the maker has actually filled in the gaps around the fan pieces with strips, and they go throughout the whole quilt. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do yet, so I'm making my border. I just added some strips of yellow um, fabric in strips that I had. Um, and you can't see on this bit, but place your fan underneath your quilting template to make sure that it is actually going to be central, and the whole overall piece is going to be square. Once you've done that, you can give the whole piece a good press. Now you can see it under the quilting template, and it's quite important to make sure that the point of the fan is in the corner and that you haven't got any bits overlapping. I had to really patch my yellow fabric together to make the backgrounds because that's all I had. So I I'm combining them all in little patches to be the background of the fan, and the overall piece is going to be square. I patched them all up and then I trimmed it off to make it square. And then don't attempt to attach a piece just by sewing it to the wide end of the fan. I actually appliqued onto the background at this point where the curve is. I appliqued that on by doing an applique stitch on the sewing machine, as you can see me doing here. It looks as though the birds in the garden have decided to make themselves a quilt as well. Thank you for keeping me company in the sewing room today. I'll be back soon with more progress on the inspiration quilt.